Hey everybody, Darren again from Aussie Outback Supplies, EZEsharp Blade Sharpener. Today I'm going to show you basically what's in the box for the EZEsharp Blade Sharpener in the flip over version, but more importantly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and do a complete setup on the bench and just show you how to put it all together to make it nice and simple. So I'll just go through and point everything out that we've actually got here to start with. For the stone frame, we have got the two guide rods because we have the two stone frames. One's a 2-inch, one's a 2-inch or a 3-inch option. The two handles to go with the stone frames. Then we roll into the larger knob which goes with the flip over to attach it to the frame. We have the smaller knob that goes with the T-bar to again attach it to the frame. We have got the serrated knife adapter and the Allen key to go with it. We've got the spare slightly longer bolts, Allen bolts to go into the flip over for bigger, wider blades. We have the Phillips screwdriver that again does some adjustment on there, which I'll talk about later. We have a stone in here for the stone frame. We have the T-bar which guides the actual stone frames in the system. We have 3 spanners, 2 small spanners for each end of the stone frame, the larger spanner to tighten the actual guide rod into the actual block. We have the Allen key, which again tightens the knife into the system. We have a manual and we have the flyer. And we have the stone frame, have the actual frame itself to put it all together, and then the flip over. So that's everything that comes in the actual box, people. Let's put it together. I'll just disregard a couple of things. So we've got the flyer that comes with it. It's got basically what's in the box as well, but a bit of information about some stones. We have got the old original user manual, which we'll get an update a bit later on, but what we're going to talk to you about will cover a lot of those things in there. So what we'll do is we'll get the frame itself and we'll put the T-bar on it to start with. So the T-bar, literally, there's a groove in the back. The T-bar will slide onto the back of here. We'll take that shorter or smaller bolt that I mentioned and get it started in there. Now this will be one of the first measurements that will actually be quite important in the whole setup of your stone frame, of your sharpener as such. I'm just going to get this set up first to the right spot for you. Then I'll show you what I've done. On the actual frame itself, there is a small mark here. It's only a small mark, but then there's a guide right here in millimeters. So we're going to line up, I can't see quite around, but the 40mm mark here with the mark on the actual frame, which will then leave a small gap here. But that 40mm is very important. What that will do is zero the actual flip over itself. So with the flip over, which is this particular unit, around the end there's a dial. That dial's got all your degrees. So when you attach this one here onto the actual frame, you'll see there's a mark across the top right here on the frame, and that'll come together now and make sense. Grabbing the larger knob, put that through. That will tighten up, and then you'll see your mark on the top of the frame here lining up with there. I think that's probably at 15 degrees, but don't quote me on that because I didn't have a quick look there. That will then adjust your angles, which we'll show you now. So it's got a nice big clamping system here, so I can clamp onto pretty much any of your big overhanging benches, and it's a very secure clamp system. So we'll just pop that on there and tighten it up underneath so it doesn't move around too much. In fact, I might move it slightly to the side. And looking at that, it does look like it's on 15 degrees, so I'll pop that up to 20 degrees. Now just a quick one, with the actual angle that we have in here, normally I'll say to people around about 15 degrees to 20 degrees for a kitchen knife, around about 20 degrees, give or take a little bit, for a normal working knife, boners, butchers, skinners. And then you'll lift that angle up and make it a little bit larger when you go into things like your meat cleavers, machetes, and some of your bushcraft type survival knives where you want that bigger angle for chopping, etc. If there's plenty of Google research or Google information out there on angles, or you may have your own angles, that would be my startup recommendation. Now I'm just going to grab from out the side here a stone frame. I've already done a video on how to set the stone frames up, but pretty much this one being set up, I can show you a couple of key points straight away which will make your life quite a bit easier. So when you put the actual stone into the stone frame, it'll be a combination stone like this one here. Now this center rod that clamps the stone in, you need to have the same distance from the centers out on all 4 sides. And the whole idea of having those distances even is when that goes into the actual rod through the back there and sits against your knife there, when you flip from one side to the other, If that's even there, that means your angle doesn't change, which will give you a better finish on your blade. So that's number one. Now you will use these two little spanners here to actually hold each end of your nuts when you're clamping that together. So that's what they're used for. The larger spanner will be used at this end, get the right one as well, at that end to attach the actual guide rod itself. So the guide rod where it goes into the actual blocks at the end of those. Now the other key point right here I should mention is that line that's coming through the center should also line up with that. So it should be one long straight line. Now some stones which come out of molds may not have square ends. If that happens, then in that section right through here, you can shim that with some paper, a piece of a business card, and what that will do is actually allow you to straighten up this rod against the stone. As I said, this one's quite good at this end. Just for giggles, you'll see that that end there, the stone's on an angle, which has actually made the handle sit back on a little bit of an angle back the other way. There's a separate video on how to set the stone frame up, so I just thought I'd show you that one there. That's how all of that section comes together. These guys, you've got two handles, and you've also got two complete stone frames. You've got a 2-inch stone frame, and this one here, which will do 2-inch or 3-inch stones. So you have the option to go 2 or 3 or 2 2s. Generally, we just use the one stone for most of our sharpening if you're running a combination. Guide rods, stone, all together. Now, I'll just quickly mention this little fitting here. So this guy here that you're looking at is used for doing serrated knives. And what I'll do, just grab one from out the side here. So what happens is one of these guide rods will just go straight into the end and tighten up. And then you've got your 2 grub screws on the edge here, which you've tightened into a sharpening steel. And again, you've got the Allen key to do that one there. Now the whole idea behind this one is if you're doing things like a bread knife where you've got your scalloped edges, now you can have your bread knife set up at your angle and you'll just roll through backwards and forwards on those scallops. So you're right up to your points, and that's where that will actually fit in. So that comes in the kit, guys. So you can do all your bread knives with that one there as well. Now it's been a couple of minutes here just talking about the last few bits and pieces, which will be the flip over. So we've already spoken about your angles. Now the flip over itself has got 3 Allen screws that come with it in the unit, and then you've got these 3 spare longer screws. Now the whole idea behind the shorter and the longer screws are, when this comes clamped off and the Phillips screws are all tight, you've got a small gap through the center there, which is the perfect gap to do your kitchen knives, boning knives, butcher's knives, etc. So, and what I mean by the perfect length is this half bar that comes through the center. It allows you enough purchase to actually get the threads pretty much all the way through, so you're not going to strip anything out. But if you need to go to a wider blade, so you're doing a meat cleaver that's a 1/4 inch wide, that's not going to fit into there. So with your Phillips screws driver, you'll undo these 4 Phillips screws, just even a full turn on each one, keep it even, so a full turn on each one, and make sure your Allen keys, you've taken those out and swapped them out to the 3 larger ones. And what that'll do then is allow your plates to become loose, which will open up. Once that opens up, you can put in that bigger, wider blade, whatever it might be, and then tighten up with your Allen keys. Just do like a half a turn, just until you pick up the slack and you've tightened it on there, and then use these 3 here with the Allen keys provided to lock your actual knife into place. That'll allow, as I said, a wider purchase on the bigger blades. That covers pretty much all of that side of it. The last thing, and obviously a really good point about the whole idea with this flip over sharpener, is once you've sharpened one side, that's straight up, over and back in to get to the other side. So just straight up and over, to swap from side to side, and it doesn't change any of your angles. There you go, guys. That's how to set up your sharpener, and you're ready to go. So key points, 40mm over on this side here for knives. Pretty much always 40mm. And over this side here, this dial changes and your angles change. All written on this section here. Now I do get asked why you even have this move. The reason why this can move up and down is we have another fitting called the wedge, which is for things like scissors, mulesing shears, those single-sided bladed tools, which means everything's the same except this fitting here, the accessory gets swapped out for a wedge fitting. And because the wedge stands more upright, that goes to 70 millimeters, so it lifts the T-bar by 30 millimeters to allow for the wedge fitting, which would normally stand a bit more upright. So that brings everything up and keeps your stone on a flat parallel that just lifts everything up. So that's the reason why that does actually move up and down. 40 millimeters for the flip over for knives. Okay, happy sharpening.